Thousands of years ago, a group of sages, also called rishis, received knowledge through divine inspiration. These rishis lived independently of each other in different parts of ancient India. For centuries, the precious knowledge was passed down orally from generation to generation through recitation. It was one of the most strictly regulated oral traditions in the world, with every word and intonation carefully preserved. This continued until around 1500 BC, when the knowledge was recorded in Sanskrit. These were called Vedas and gave rise to the early Vedic age. Unlike many other ancient texts, such as the Sumerian for example, the Vedas have not been the subject of archaeological discovery. They exist today thanks to their strict preservation by Indian tradition. They are some of the most ancient texts in existence today, containing teachings and hymns that are the foundation of Hindu religion and spirituality. They are essentially the ultimate source of knowledge and guidance for Hindu life, covering a wide range of topics from sacred rituals, daily practices, to answers to universal questions. The word itself literally means knowledge, and therefore serves as the sacred text of most Orthodox Hindu denominations. But there is a theory that the Vedas are not just a sacred text composed from an ancient religion, but that they may literally hold the answer to the greatest questions in the universe. Here you would naturally say, yes, that is what all the religions of the world claim. Indeed, other religions offer answers to our existence, but modern science is beginning to discover that the knowledge presented in the Vedas from thousands of years ago is incredibly accurate. So accurate, in fact, that researchers and scientists themselves are beginning to ask, what if the Vedas actually contain hidden knowledge about the very structure of our existence? Knowledge that, if decoded, could change everything we know about the universe. What if we have actually already begun to decode the Vedas? Originating at least 5,000 years ago in the Indus Valley, Hinduism is also one of the oldest religions in the world. It may be difficult to sum it all up in one place, but if we want to learn more about Hinduism, the best place to start would be the Vedas. However, understanding these ancient texts can be challenging for a number of reasons. Even their structure is more complex than that of most scriptures. Briefly, there are 4 Vedas: Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda. Then each of the Vedas is also structured into 4 sections: the Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads. Each section serves different purposes. For example, the Samhita serves as the basic text of the Vedas. It is a collection of hymns, prayers, and mantras. At the same time, the Brahmana contains a prosaic text that serves as a commentary on the rituals. The Aranyaka, on the other hand, is composed of rituals and rites. It exists as a transitional text to the last section. Finally, the Upanishads are philosophical and mystical texts that explore deep spiritual concepts. Because they are usually found in the last section of the Vedas, they are also called Vedanta, which means conclusion. The Upanishads are probably the most interesting part of the Vedas, because here there are discussions of philosophy, spirituality, and metaphysics. In other words, if you are looking for the answers to the biggest questions in your life, you can find them in the Upanishads. For example, they focus on understanding Brahman, aka the ultimate immutable reality, and Atman, aka our true inner self. The Upanishads also explore the relationship between the individual soul and the universal soul. According to the Vedas, every individual has Atman, which is eternal and identical with Brahman. The soul, however, cannot recognize its real self because of the cosmic illusion that makes the material world appear real. This illusion or ignorance is known as Maya. All souls go through samsara, a cycle of death and rebirth that repeats for all eternity until spiritual liberation is attained. Depending on how well you did in your previous life, your next life will either be a reward or a punishment. This is known as karma. Each person is encouraged to follow the dharma or righteous duty in order to make spiritual progress and live in harmony with the universe. Our goal is to attain moksha, which is liberation and union with Brahman, leading to eternal peace and bliss. Well, it is a little complicated. But to cut it short, Basically, the concept is that the material world we find ourselves in is illusory, and awakening to the truth is the only path to freedom. Apart from the one mentioned above, there are other texts in Hinduism that are relevant to the study of the Vedas. Vedanga, or Vedic applications, are ancient texts that expand and interpret Vedic knowledge. Famous examples are the two epic poems Ramayana and Mahabharata, of which the Bhagavad Gita is a part. But how do the Vedas predict scientific discoveries?
Now I have become death, the destroyer of worlds.
From Bhagavad Gita. In 1945, the nuclear bomb was completed, and Robert Oppenheimer was in New Mexico when it was first detonated. When he witnessed its detonation and saw its immense destructive capabilities, he quoted a text from the Bhagavad Gita and said, "Now I have become death, the destroyer of worlds." This story is thus generally accepted, but it is quite debatable whether Oppenheimer said exactly that, because in an interview years later, he recalled that all he said was, "It was done." However, one thing is true. Oppenheimer was a great admirer of Vedic literature, including the Bhagavad Gita, the Meghaduta, and even the Vedas themselves. In the same interview, he admits that while he didn't say it out loud, he suggests that everyone who witnessed the bomb going off was thinking about it in one way or another. As surprising as it is that a theoretical physicist like Oppenheimer would like to read a religious text, it is even more surprising that he was not alone. There have been several scientists and researchers who have acknowledged the Vedas and even been inspired by them. Niels Bohr, Fritjof Capra, Erwin Schrödinger, Carl Sagan, Werner Heisenberg, and even Nikola Tesla have acknowledged ideas found in Vedic literature. The pioneer of quantum mechanics Niels Bohr is quoted as saying, "I go to the Upanishads to ask questions." He believed that the ancient Hindu scriptures contained concepts that matched modern scientific advances. He is even said to have been influenced by the ideas of the Vedas. Astrophysicist Carl Sagan, who is known for his outspoken skepticism about religion, acknowledged Hinduism,
the only one of the world's great religions dedicated to the idea that the cosmos itself undergoes a vast, even infinite number of deaths and rebirths. It is the only religion in which the scales of time correspond to those of modern scientific cosmology. Its cycles extend from our ordinary day and night to the day and night of Brahma, 8,640,000,000 years long, longer than the age of the Earth or the Sun, and about half the time since the Big Bang.
Carl Sagan. Many people's favorite scientist, Nikola Tesla, is also known to have had a deep interest in Vedic philosophy. His inventions are said to have been inspired by Vedic concepts, including the dream that was never realized, free energy. He says,
"All tangible matter is derived from a primordial substance, or beyond conception, filling all space, the akasha or luminous ether, on which the life-giving prana or creative power acts, causing all things and phenomena to exist in infinite cycles."
Nikola Tesla. The fact that so many scientists recognize the similarities between modern scientific discoveries, especially in physics and astronomy, is striking. There are many other concepts in the Vedic texts that largely coincide with scientific ideas and theories. One of these is the concept of multiple dimensions. According to Vedic teachings, space in our universe is multidimensional, 64 dimensions to be exact. But since we can only perceive 3 of them, our view is limited to only 3D, and we cannot access these other dimensions. Over the last century, several theories have emerged concerning the possibility of the existence of other dimensions. String theory, which is romantically referred to as the theory of everything, suggests that the universe is made of tiny vibrating strings instead of point-like particles. The resulting entities, such as matter and energy, will depend on how these strings vibrate. The strings vibrate throughout the universe and are so compact that we cannot see them. Furthermore, since we can only perceive things in 3D, we cannot know for sure, at least yet, that there are other dimensions. If we imagine that we are ants walking on a wire, for now, we can do nothing but move back and forth until we realize that we can also move sideways and around it. Another important scientific theory that might resonate with the Vedas is time dilation. It was essentially introduced by Albert Einstein and describes how time flows at different rates for observers in different frames of reference. There are two main types of time deceleration: relative velocity deceleration and gravitational deceleration. The theory states that time can flow more slowly for an object in motion relative to a stationary observer. This effect becomes significant when the speed of the object approaches the speed of light. At the same time, gravitational time dilation, or general relativity, occurs when time flows slower in stronger gravitational fields. The closer an observer is to a massive object, the slower time moves for them compared to someone who is farther away from the object. Either way, this shows that time is not an absolute and universal constant. But what does this have to do with the Vedas? The Bhagavata Purana describes how a king flew to the abode of Brahma, the highest planetary system, and remained there for only 20 earthly minutes. But when he returned to Earth, he found that 116,640,000 years had passed, and everyone he knew was gone. Many astronauts who spend time in space say they have had the feeling that time moves differently for them. The Big Bang is another concept that has uncanny similarities to Vedic teachings. According to them, the world started from nothingness through heat. This resonates with the idea from the Big Bang theory that the universe exploded out of nothing. Vedic texts also insist that we all originated from a single unchanging reality called Brahman. This can be referred to as the hot and dense point from which the universe probably arose. There is much more in the Vedas that seems to agree with science, especially in the areas of astrophysics, genetics, mathematics, astronomy, quantum physics, medicine, and chemistry. And there is no way to fit it all into one video. Still, did the ancient Hindus know anything more? Why do they have records talking about flying machines as far back as 7,000 years ago? And what beings came down to Earth with them? You can learn all about the celestial chariots of the ancient Indians by clicking on the video you see on the screen.